Hi guys, I'm here at my home, ready to show you a super trade secret. This is a recipe that is Crumbs and Doilies classic, and you guys have asked for it so many times. It is my recipe for red velvet cake. But before I get started, I just want to remind you that I have launched my range of merch. I did it back just before Christmas. It's going really super well. Lots of you have been collecting some of the stuff that I sell, like this badge, and we've got this amazing tea towel, which I use all the time. There's loads and loads of cool stuff on there. We worked really hard to get the designs really cool. It fits with my brand. It's got awesome colors and awesome pictures. So go and check that out if you haven't already. Everything that you buy helps to support this channel and helps me keep making videos for you. So it's brilliant. So thank you in advance. And now I'm going to get on with making the cake. So this is a recipe that we've used at Crumbs and Doilies for many, many years. I've already shared our cupcake recipe with you guys, and it's been watched over 2 million times, which is kind of annoying because I look really horrendous in that video, but it's kind of too late to do anything about it. So do go and check out that video if you haven't seen it already. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. It is the best red velvet cupcake you'll ever find. And this is going to be the best red velvet cake recipe. So it's super simple. I'm going to start by sieving 355 grams of plain flour, along with 25 grams of good quality cocoa powder and half a teaspoon of salt, which I'm just going to shuffle through my sieve. And I'm just going to give it a whisk as well, just to make sure the ingredients are well combined, and then put that to one side. And now I'm going to get my wet ingredients together. Starting with 70 grams of buttermilk. And I'm also going to add 3/4 teaspoon of good quality vanilla extract. And now it's time for the food colouring, and obviously it's red because red velvet, and rumour has it that this recipe was invented by a Texan man who had a food colouring factory, and he needed a way of getting people to buy more food colouring. So original recipes would have quite a lot of liquid red food colouring. Sometimes recipes I found had like half a cup, which is such an awful lot. So when I started baking, I didn't really want to use that much food colouring. So I adapted recipes to fit with my style of baking, and also to take into account that I would be using colour paste rather than liquid. And this is the perfect amount. So I've got 3/4 teaspoon of the very concentrated red colour paste, which I'm going to add to the wet mix, and then whisk that all together. And make sure you whisk it really well so that you don't have little nuggets of red food colouring in your batter. It wants to be all completely incorporated. Okay. Now I'm going to put that to one side until I'm ready to use it, and then the first thing we're going to do to make this batter is to beat the butter and the sugar together. I've got 375 grams of soft unsalted butter and 405 grams of caster sugar. And that needs to be beat together on quite a high speed for about 5 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes, to get it really pale and fluffy. Alright, that's had a few minutes and it's looking really good. So it's now ready to have the eggs added, and I've got 6 large free-range eggs. I'm going to add them one at a time and beat them for about 30 seconds after each one. That's all combined. It's ready to have the dry and the wet ingredients mixed together, but I'm going to add them alternately. And it's important to add the dry ingredients first and last, and the reason for this is because all you've got in here is basically fat. And if you start adding the liquid first, it's not going to absorb anything. It's just going to kind of separate, and you're going to end up with a really heavy cake. This way, giving it a bit of dry ingredients to kind of help absorb the liquid is going to make it much better. So I'm going to start by putting about 1/3 of my dry ingredients in. And that just needs to be folded at quite a slow speed. Now once that starts to come together, you can then add about half of your red mixture. And then keep adding your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients one after the other until you end up with the dry, folding them in slowly. That's all the ingredients mixed together except for the last 2 ingredients, apple cider vinegar and bicarbonate of soda. And the vinegar is one of the things which gives the red velvet its unique flavour. It gives it a little bit of tang, and the bicarbonate of soda gives it a bit of a lift. So I'm going to add the soda to the vinegar. I've got 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar and 1 teaspoon of soda. And you need to do this bit quite quickly. So add the soda to the vinegar, give it a little stir, and then add it to your batter. And once that's had about 30 seconds mixing, it is ready. Now I'm going to be using 7-inch cake tins. They are 7-inch round ones and they've got loose bottoms. And I've already greased and floured the edges, simply putting flour on and then tapping out the excess. And I've also lined the bases, and that's going to make sure that these cakes come out really easily and really smooth on the sides. So very carefully and as evenly as possible, distribute your batter among the 4 tins. And once all your batter's in, you just need to level it out with a palette knife. Once you've done that, you just need to bake them at 170 degrees C for about 20 to 22 minutes until a skewer comes out clean from the middle. While my cakes are baking, I'm going to make the cream cheese icing, and I've obviously made this before in a few recipes. I've even done a cream cheese icing masterclass video, which you should check out. Just a little warning, there is a bit more sugar in this recipe than there is on that recipe, and that is because I'm going to be building my cake up, and the cake is quite heavy, and the cream cheese icing that I normally make is quite sort of loose. So I want to stiffen it up a tiny bit, so I've just added a little bit more sugar just to make that happen so that it doesn't smush out the sides when I build it. So first things first, I'm going to start by beating my butter and cream cheese together, and I've got 150 grams of soft unsalted butter and 240 grams of cream cheese. And I'm going to beat that for a couple of minutes. And now I can add the icing sugar, and I've got 960 grams of that. I've sifted it already, so it's ready to go. I'm going to put it in 2 stages, beating really well after each one. Yummy cream cheese icing, and this is the traditional icing to put on your red velvet cake, and it is really good. It adds a nice creaminess to the whole affair. So my cakes are still baking. I obviously need to wait for them to cool down. In the meantime, I'm going to cover my icing so that it's airtight, otherwise it's going to go a bit crispy. I'm back to decorate my cake. So my cakes came out of the oven and they are completely cool now. And I've also trimmed them just using my trusty cake leveler. I'm not trimming the edges this time because I'm going to make this a naked cake and I want the sides to be intact. So now I'm going to start building, and I'm going to start off with a little blob of icing, and that's just going to help to stick the first layer of cake down. So I'll just spread that out a little bit. Doesn't have to be neat. So then I'm going to start by putting my first layer of cake onto my cake board. And I've got all of my cream cheese icing in a big old piping bag with a big round nozzle on it, and I'm going to use that to fill each layer of cake, of course. But I want to be careful around the outside because the edges are going to be visible when we build this cake, so that needs to be nice and neat. And then just keep layering it up and filling it until you reach the top. Once you put the last layer on, you then need to just pop that into the fridge for about half an hour to an hour, just to make sure it sets so it doesn't squish down. Right, that's had an hour in the fridge and it is settled in. It's not going to smush out when I put any pressure on the top, which is brilliant. So now I'm just going to finish the top by doing a very neat layer of the cream cheese icing, and I'm going to finish that off by smoothing out with a palette knife. And you can decorate this however you want. I'm going to put some crumbs that I saved from the tops of my cakes just in the middle. And then finally finish it off by putting a few blobs of cream cheese icing around the outside. And that is the finished red velvet cake, a delicious combination of fluffy, tangy, creamy, bit of salty, bit of sweet, not quite a vanilla cake, not quite a chocolate cake, not even something in between. It's all its own thing. It's a very special cake. And I hope you make it, and I hope you #CupcakeGemma on Instagram and Twitter so that I can see that you've made it. And I'll be back next week with another recipe. In the meantime, head over to my merch website, cupcakegemma.com, to check out all the fabulous things that you can buy on my merch. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. I'll see you next week. Bye.